All right, it says that we're live. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Aaron's Reading Room. Today I've got a very special guest with me. I have Harlequin's medical author, Juliette Hyland. Juliette, how are you today?
Hi everyone. I'm doing well. Like I said, it's Friday. It's always easier to be happy on Friday.
Absolutely, absolutely good. So, what have you been up to lately?
Well, this is a really busy year. I actually have 4 books out this year, which is insane. Um, which is great. But that means that for the most part, what I've been doing is doing it. I have a day job and then writing books.
Uh-huh.
And then I have two daughters, and we're in that season where we've got tennis and karate and those types of things. So for the most part, I just stay pretty busy doing mom stuff and then writing. I always joke that if you are going to ask me what's currently relevant in pop culture, I am not going to be able to tell you.
That's all right. And
Although my
that's
sister did convince me to watch Love Is Blind.
Oh, okay. Okay. And I did a podcast recording with your sister on
Yes.
the categorically romance. So yeah, so great time there. Friend Alicia's here. Hey Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
So expand more on that. You still have a day job and you have multiple book contracts with Harlequin.
I do. I do. Yeah. So I still have a day job. That it was, I will say it was a little funny because I actually just had my midterm review and they were talking, like, what are your goals and everything. I was like, well, to get out of here.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's the dirty little secret in the writing world that I think a lot of times people don't want to hear, but is really accurate, is that there are people that go full-time writing and are able to make a career out of it,
Mhm.
but it doesn't happen overnight. There is no such thing as an overnight success.
Yeah.
And a lot of us still have day jobs that we work at, and the writing stuff is stuff that happens, in the free time.
Yeah. Well, good on you for staying at it and working hard and still getting those books out for us that love reading them. So thank you.
I enjoy writing them. They're so fun.
And we can tell when we read your books, so it's great. It comes through on the page, definitely. I always like having my guests share covers that they're in love with. So did you bring any covers to share with us today?
Sure. So the one that I love the absolute most, and this is one of my favorite stories too, is
Mm-hmm.
the pediatrician's twin bombshell.
Uh-huh.
It just pops so much, like her with that yellow
Yes.
shirt. It's just so much fun. And this one actually is set in Dallas, Texas, which is
Okay.
where I grew up.
Oh, all right.
And so I knew it would hit for exactly like 5 people, but
Uh-huh.
the high school football rivalry that's in here is my hometown football
Oh,
rivalry.
oh,
And so
awesome.
so I actually thought Harlequin might make me pull it out of
Mhm.
the book, but they didn't. And not only did they not make me pull it out, but those fun little put like sections that they put like right up front, that's like just like the
Yeah.
blurb, they put it as that, like it's got the Trinity and the LD Bell right up front, and my hometown, like the guys I grew up with, my friends that I'm still in contact with, were like, oh my God, we're famous.
Awesome. Awesome. You put them on the map. That's great.
So that one was fun. And then this is my one that comes out this summer, and it has a dog on the
Okay.
cover.
Oh, great. I love dog covers, and I'm
So
glad we're seeing more of them.
and once I say it, you won't be able to unsee it, but he looks like Tobey Maguire.
Oh, he does.
He does. I
Did,
actually was like, did they find like an old, like, did he do stock photos before he got famous?
right. No, did you put that on your cover fact sheet or whatever, Toby Maguire?
I didn't put Tobey Maguire, although when I went back to look at it, he does look a lot like who I put on there, but not quite. He's my first hero. He's got a full set of tattoos on his arm. He's got a full tattoo sleeve.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of wondered if they might do that. The characters that actually look the most like who I actually put in there is actually the one that just came out, which is
Oh,
Benedict
okay.
and Penny. They look
Awesome.
almost like Like I actually like when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, they found Benedict and Penny.
That is great. That's great.
So,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I did bring one in case anyone wanted to see them. So this is one of the finished covers.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's a
I saw
foreign
that on
edition.
social media today. Yeah.
Yeah, so this actually came in today, and I thought, well, it might be fun for people to see. Like, so they look completely. So it's a different. It's like a instead of being the blue that you see in like the UK and the US covers, it's like this light green. It's a very pretty light green.
Yeah.
So
Is that a 2-book edition?
it is. So it's Scarlett Wilson's, and I have no idea. So this is actually it's Unlocking the Ex-Army Doc's Heart, which was my first, which was my debut, and
Okay.
I don't know which Scarlett Wilson this is because I can't read it.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know which Scarlet book it is. So, but yeah, so it's a light green. I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, that's really. I love seeing those translated versions of them. It's so cool.
It does make you feel very fancy as an author when you actually have like foreign editions come in.
Right? You're like, look at me. I'm published in in Icelandic or whatever.
Exactly.
Whatever
You're like, oh my goodness. I don't know what to do with them because they all land, like they come, and then I'm like, well, what am I actually supposed to do with?
Right. You're never gonna read it, right?
Right. Like
Well, I guess if you're gonna learn the language, it would be great because it's something you wrote, so you'd have good
this is
context
true.
for it. Yeah.
This is true.
So your newest series is the Neonatal Nurses, and that's launched this month with A Nurse to Claim His Heart. So can you tell us a little bit about the book and the series overall?
Sure. So A Nurse to Claim His Heart was my first duet story. So I wrote book 1, which is A Nurse to Claim His Heart. And then Scarlett Wilson actually wrote book 2, which is The Nurse's Unexpected House Guest.
Okay.
Which is Alice's story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so my story, so the idea behind so all Harlequin told us was that they wanted a neonatal story.
Okay.
And Scarlett and I very early on were like, babies can be very sick. Everybody gets better. Life has been too difficult in the 2020s. So Penny and Alice are both neonatal nurses in Washington, D.C. And Benedict is a neonatal doctor. And he's really just a big softie. But when Scarlett and I were talking about it, we kind of wanted to make it, I think a lot of times when you see in books, you see particularly the siblings have, kind of a strained relationship because it's easier to kind of make conflict happen that way. And we really wanted for it to come across that Penny and Alice were very close.
Yeah.
And so they're really best friends. And it's actually very much based off of my relationship with my sister. To which she actually called me earlier this week and she's like, I think that I should get some of the royalties. She's like, because some of this stuff is like verbatim, some of our stuff. And I was like, wow, it's like your attitude is such that, but Scarlett actually put in, and so they're romance novels. So, happily ever afters happen. So the end of Scarlett's book is actually the wedding for Penny and Benedict.
Oh, that's
and
great.
In that she actually did what my sister did at her wedding. So my sister and I got married 3 weeks apart, my poor mother. And at my sister's wedding, she was getting ready to throw the bouquet behind her. And I was standing in front of her because I was already engaged. And she went 1, 2, and then she chucked it directly at me. I barely caught it. And at Penny and Benedict's wedding, when Penny is getting ready to chuck the bouquet, instead of throwing it behind her, she throws it to Alice, and then Alice's hero proposes.
Oh, that's great.
So, but yeah, Becca read that and she was like, excuse me.
stealing from real life, but right what you know. Right.
Very much so. So, but yeah, some of the conversations. And when I was actually doing the initial plotting for this one, because I wanted the idea, so there was a very kind of infamous story that went around social media for a gentleman that was engaged to 4 different women, and they all found each other on Facebook, and he had a wife and kids.
Oh, wow.
It was insanity. And I was like, what if it so the idea for Penny and conflict that she would have is, what would happen if you were one of these women? Like what? Ooh. And so that's where the idea for her came from. And I mentioned that to my sister, and I was like, yeah, so that's kind of what I need. I was like, but I need her sister to be kind of forcing her. She's like, yeah, she's like, well, she just needs to tell her that the best way to get over someone is to get under someone else. And I was like, I'm going to steal that line.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how Penny came about.
All right. That's great. So I found something interesting about A Nurse to Claim His Heart, and that is that the couple really fell for each other right away, or they weren't resistant to the attraction like there is in a lot of other romance books. It's kind of a very common occurrence to have the fight the feelings. So what was your decision-making process on that?
So my decision-making process on this one was that they were kind of each other's one that got away initially. And that once they actually got to the point where they really had the opportunity to be together, that they would really want to explore that feeling. But also neither of them are really thinking that this is long-term. So it's easy for them to, until of course those feelings start really digging in. And then you start to get to that point where like, oh, walking away from this is actually not, it's all fun and games when we're kind of just having a fling. Because that is one thing that is very nice about the medicals is all of our heroes and heroines have to be older. Because you have either graduated from med school or from nursing school or from paramedics or so they're all older heroes and heroines. So it's a lot. I think as you start to get older, you start to realize sometimes what you will and will not accept.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a relationship. And I kind of wanted to play with the idea for this one that they really want to be together. They just have to get out of their own way, because the truth of the matter is, in most people's relationships, that's the answer. And I really wanted to play with the idea on this one of the conversation, because you see all the time, and I think it's a fair criticism on romance novels sometimes, where if the conversation can just be had, then why wouldn't you just have the conversation? So I wanted to kind of play with that idea, except in this instance, there were several places where a conversation could have, but you can see why Benedict and Penny, why neither one of them are quite willing to bring it up, which is a very human emotion to just want to put it off for one more day.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to play with that idea of really finding someone, but having this secret that, I mean, how many times do you start something and have a secret and you're like, if I had done it the first time, it would have been easier, except I didn't want to do it the first time. And now it's gone on longer, and coming clean is so much harder.
Yeah. Especially after all the time, everything. So
right.
That's great. So you mentioned that, that this is kind of a one that got away story, but it's not, it doesn't fall firmly into the second chance groove. So were you going for that initially, or had you always planned to just have it be like a missed chance sort of?
Yeah, this was very much always a missed chance. There was never a portion of this one where I wanted this to be where they thought they had gone on a date kind of thing beforehand, but it wasn't anything that was it wasn't anything that was like big, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Aaron, I've lost you. Hold on one second.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Lose battery in the ears.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Nope.
No? Oh no.
Oh no.
Well, it wouldn't be alive if we didn't have some technical difficulties.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can
okay,
you hear me?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. Those, I haven't switched to the wireless ones yet because I'm like, why do I want one other thing I need to charge? No. Well, I'm sorry that you had to put your headphones on. I know you did all the new stuff to your hair and everything, which looks great.
Okay, they're all there. We're good to go.
All right. So I've been dying to ask you this in more detail, but you mentioned Oregon State University several times in A Nurse to Claim His Heart. And that's actually my hometown. I spent the first 19 years of my life there. So can you tell us about the history and decision there?
Sure. So I almost went to Oregon State for grad school.
Okay. What was your field of study?
Post-communist Russian studies.
Really?
Yes.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So I actually joked when I was on the Categorically Romance podcast that no one wants a Yeltsin era romance. So I have a history degree, but my specialty is very much in a distinct era. So I almost went there for graduate school.
Okay.
And I was deciding between there and Kansas State. Okay. And then my day job offered me a position, and I thought, well, I have student loans. It'd be a good idea to pay those off first.
Yeah.
So then I landed in Ohio. So I came here and ended up here, and then Oregon State was where I was planning to go. They had offered me a small scholarship. So I was going to go and get my PhD in Russian studies, but
well, it's not the most busy city, so so you didn't miss out on too much. Oh, and Alicia loves the NICU representation.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. We really wanted it to seem like it was a real NICU. So Scarlett is actually a nurse.
Oh, okay.
In her day job. And so we kind of chatted on some of the things that we would kind of see there. And then I have a friend in my writers group who has a child who's perfectly fine now, but who spent the first couple of weeks in the NICU. And so kind of getting that like feeling down of what it's like to actually be there. As a matter of fact, the initial story that we have with, in my story, where the mom is worried about taking their daughter home, was kind of based loosely off of a couple of the stories that I heard of that. Like, you want everything you do from the day that they enter the NICU until the day that they come home is to get them home. And then suddenly that day comes and you're like, but what happens if I break them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of playing with that. Plus, I really wanted to start the story with a healthy baby going home.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. It's scary for a lot of folks, even without the whole NICU element too. Right. And then you add that in and just extra. Oh no, what am I going to do wrong?
Absolutely.
First time parenting thing. Yeah. All of us parents went through.
Yeah. They just, as if they're 5 pounds and fit in a car seat, they just let you take them home.
Yeah. All right. Good luck.
Have fun.
Yes. And oh boy, those first years are, well, I don't even remember mine anymore, honestly. So ours were like the first 6 years because we had our second, they're only 18 months apart.
Oh, wow.
Our kids. So yeah, we decided if we're doing diapers, we're doing it all right now. And then we'll be done with it.
Yeah. Mine are just over 2. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So you were a NICU baby too, Alicia?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but outside of The Witch's Daughter and other stories, so far it's just been Harlequin Medical Romance. Is that correct?
So it has just been Harlequin Medical Romance. So The Witch's Daughter and other stories. So fun fact for any of you that are looking at possibly independently publishing, Goodreads picks up everything. So The Witch's Daughters and Other Stories was literally a collection of short stories that I threw up into KDP for like 4 or 5 weeks because with the writers group that I run on Thursdays, people were asking questions and I was like, oh, well, like I'll put something on there and see what, like how hard it is, like what the process is, like all of those types of things so that we just have an idea. I did the same thing. I also have a Kindle Vella story out there that's under a different name that was for the same thing. Like, hey, like, well, I'll do it so you can decide if you want to, kind of thing. And then And then Goodreads picked it up. And so now there's just like, there's this story with this like Amazon cover that was made on it that's sitting in there. That is so. So if you decide, maybe don't throw up something just for trial and error to see if it works.
That is so funny. Have you heard of Penny Reed's story about her first book? It was Knitting in the City. It's Neanderthal Seeks Human.
No.
So she was dared, I guess, or challenged to write, or I guess just wanted to write a romance based around a coworker of hers, and did it and shared it with her coworker. Her coworker loved it and is like, "Oh, can my book club read this?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, sure. I'll just throw it up on Kindle, for the night, and make sure that you all get it." And so she checks the next morning to see if like the 5 people that wanted it, and like 8,000 people had read it, and there were reviews for it and everything.
Okay, so there is one example of an overnight success.
Yes.
Oh, how funny. No, I did not know that. Yeah, this was literally just what happened. So that is right now, it is just the medicals. There are a couple of things that I have in the hopper that I can't talk about just yet, but okay. there are a couple of things that are potentially on the line. So
all right, well, that's great.
Fingers crossed.
How did you end up in the medical line? Was it you were writing for it, or you just had medical characters and it fit?
Harlequin did a medical blitz.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, and at the time, the RWA group that I belonged to, Central Ohio Fiction Writers, Robin Gianna and Amelie Berlin were both in that group. And Tracy Douglas lives in Indiana. And Tina Beckett lives like 40 minutes north of me. Okay. If you want to write medicals and you're not in Australia or the UK, for the most part, you're here in the Midwest. And Robin made this like whole pitch that everybody that was in the group should try like a medical. You just had one, it was one chapter that you had to put in and a synopsis. Okay. And so I thought, I had tried the historical. I went through multiple rounds of revisions with the historical. And so I figured, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll write the medical. And I was watching, Fuller House had just come out. So like the kids are older, but it's the Full House stuff. Right. And quite famously, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen did not come back for that show. Mm-hmm. And my daughters were watching it and asked me, well, where is Michelle? And so I looked it up. And when I saw that they had decided, they have not acted in multiple decades, which is why they didn't want to come back. They do fashion stuff. And I was like, well, what if my heroine, Annie, is a former child actress? And instead of Mary-Kate or Ashley Olsen going into fashion, they went into the medical world. Okay. And so that was it's a little bit something kind of different. And so it really piqued my editor's interest out of the Blitz. And so they asked everybody, it was the very last day of the Blitz. And that with these things, if you ever want to write for Harlequin, and I highly recommend doing the Blitz, because you get feedback, guaranteed feedback very quickly, comparatively speaking, because in the publishing world, it might sit for months easily. And so usually you get feedback back in 3 to 4 weeks, which is like snapping your fingers. And it was the very last day, and I hadn't heard anything. And I was like, maybe I got lost, like all of these things. Uh-huh. And the only feedback I got was, please send the full manuscript as soon as it's done.
Oh, wow. And
so, then I had to write it. Uh-huh. So bless my sweet husband. He took care of everything here for a while while I did it up. It went through a couple of rounds of revisions. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up signing it to a 2-book deal. So
awesome.
Yeah, it was great. Fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So any plans to move beyond medical, or can't talk about that yet?
It is very possible that a historical will come out at some point.
Oh, good.
So,
Oh, good.
and then I do have a contemporary that I'm looking to take into single title. So
Oh, all
we'll
right.
see about that. So,
And is that going to be? Are you going to try and do that through like the HQN side of things, or just going to shop it around?
So I am one of those because I went through the Blitz and have done everything. I am not agented. So I am an unagented author. So I'm actually shopping that one to agents to see if
Okay.
I'm like I after I just recently signed a new contract. So when that contract runs out, I will be at 15 meds. So which is great, and I'm super excited. I love writing the medicals. But I'm like, maybe I should try getting an agent at this point. Might be time.
I think you'll do just fine.
So we'll have to see. So I'm going to Chicago North next week. Week after next. So I'm gonna do some pitching there. And also, if anybody else comes to Chicago North and you see me, please stop by and say hi. I love seeing people. So
yeah, stop by and say hi to Juliette. So can you talk a little bit more about the self-publishing thing? What did you learn through all of that?
Mostly what I learned was that I don't have time to do it right now. So I think that people that whatever you're choosing, indie publishing, trade publishing, or hybrid, where you do kind of a mixture of both, is valid across the board. And there are people that are putting out excellent stories that are making a really good living in indie publishing. But if you're going to do the indie publishing route, everything is on you, the author. So I write my stories, and that is a job, like writing the stories. Fated Mates had Nora Roberts on this week, and she was like, this is a job, and you have to remember this is a job. And I was like, preach the truth, Nora.
Yeah.
And so that part of it is the job. But when you're once I send my books to Harlequin and they accept them, they handle cover art, they handle copy editing, they handle doing some of the promotion, they have the website, they put it into Barnes and Noble and Amazon and Kobo and all of those different things. If you're doing the indie publishing route, all of that is on you, the author. But the flip side of that coin is you have a ton more control. So like my covers pop up in my inbox. I put together an art fact sheet. I tell them kind of what I want and that sort of thing. But my covers are done by Harlequin. I don't have control over that. Harlequin names my books. I don't have control over that. Although if I really hated a name, like they would.
Okay. Yeah.
We could go back and forth on that. But the initial names and things are done by them. And what I also did not realize is the back cover copy. So like the blurb on the back. Yeah. That's also done by Harlequin.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you are in the indie world, a lot of it, everything is on you, but you also have all of that control. You also get to see your sales numbers instantly.
Okay. Yeah.
I have to wait for royalty reports, and then there's an online, like I can see online, like to a certain extent. Right. But in the indie world, you can see all of that, so you know whether or not an ad is really working and driving people to purchase your book. You know all of that. On the flip side, Amazon is evil.
Yes. There is that.
And you're seeing some of those things right now where there's been issues with people buying and then returning books on Amazon, basically using Amazon as a library. Yeah. When you are with a traditional publisher, that does come with a bit more of a hammer for those things. Although the indie authors have really kind of banded together and have been able to make some changes in that world. But so it's just there are pros and cons on both sides of the house, and I highly recommend looking and seeing what you want to write. The one thing I will say with the indie world is you have a lot more control over what you want to write. It is very true that there is a niche for just about everything out there.
Oh yeah.
And if what you want to write is in a specific niche, it may fit very well into the indie world, but it would not be published by a traditional publishing house. And so you can fit really, really well into those niches if you want to.
Yes. Ruby Dixon is laughing all the way to the bank. So
absolutely. And Ice Planet Barbarians is one of my favorite things in the entire world. And
it's so good.
I have gotten so many people to read it. And I actually had one of my friends read it not too long ago. I was like, just read the first one. Just read the first one. And she sent me she sent me a message a couple of days later. And she's like, oh my God. She's like, it should be called Sated Maids, not Fated Maids. They're so good. I was like, you read it. And she's like, I read 12 of them.
Yes. That's how it goes. Yeah.
I was like, yes.
It was the same way. I was like, all right, I'm finally going to read this one. I'm just going to check it out. And 20 books later, I'm like, all right, what else is there out there?
Well, she didn't end up reading it because I made Becca read, my mind just blanked. With the Valkyries and,
Immortals After Dark.
Immortals After Dark. I made Becca read Immortals After Dark. But if she had vetoed, because she had one veto, then it was going to go Ice Planet Barbarians. I was like, if you think Immortals After Dark is something, wait for Ice Planet Barbarians.
Yeah. Did she enjoy that, or did she just barely? Okay. Yeah. I think I remember. I think I had that conversation with her.
And it's a little bit my fault. I probably should have started her with book 2. Mm-hmm. I forgot that in A Hunger Like No Other, the hero literally cuts his, like, small spoiler alert for those out there. The opening scene is him cutting his leg off in order to get to his fated mate. And I had forgotten that. And I got a phone call. She was mad. She was like, a heads up would have been nice.
Yeah. It definitely took, a few books to get into that one. I guess maybe like 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been, it was more kind of in that darker vein, but
he is very much an alpha. Like he is an alpha hole.
Oh, yeah.
He's very much an alpha hole.
Yes.
So,
well, taking it back to A Nurse to Claim His Heart, how did you come to the name Penny? Because that's a name that's actually very close to my family here. So I'm very curious.
I wish I could tell you that I have a good reason for that. I have a horrid habit, which is actually something that my friends now look for in every single one of my books, where I steal the names of my friends, friends' children, and I put them in my books. My neighbors, everybody, they go looking for them. And Penny is one of my friends. And I didn't even realize, because I had picked the name Penny and I'd already gone with it with Scarlett, and we had already gotten it cleared. And I was in like chapter 3 and realized I had named her after my friend Penny. And then it was too late to change it.
Yeah, it's here. You're in a book now, Penny.
Yep. So, but it has become a rolling theme. All of my friends go through to find and see who I have put in this time, which children are there. And I half the time don't even realize it.
Right. It's just, they're just there at the front of your brain. And so you write it down. Yeah.
Like, oh.
Well, that's cool though, that, your friends can get together and compare, and it's like, oh, well, I was the jerk in this story. And,
Yep. I'm just like, oh, Rach, Juliette, just, why?
So, can you talk about writing this duet with another author? Like, how are you and Scarlett good friends, or?
So I had never met her before. We did a Zoom call. So she lives in Scotland.
Oh.
And it was just that the contract that both of us had lined up well at the time for us to deliver at the same time. And so Harlequin sent us the neonate that they wanted it in neonatals, and they wanted it in the springtime. And so we got on a call, and I am very much a planner, and Scarlett is very much a pantser. And so we got on the call, and heaven help my little type A brain. I had like Benedict and I had Penny, and I was like, we could put them in, you know, like Washington, D.C., or if you wanted to do like whatever. And she's like, oh my God. She's like, no, this is great. Like, let's do it. And so, but then I got done typing mine and I was like, hey, I'm done. I was like, do you just want me to send it to you so that you can see like kind of how I have Alice written so that she's kind of, you know, the same in your book? Like, how do you, and she's like, that would be great. So I sent her the book. We did emails kind of back and forth. I, like my sister, read the medicals before I started writing for them. And so I had read a lot of Scarlett Wilson's book. So the first couple of minutes of the Zoom call was me a little bit fangirling. She was very sweet, very, very sweet. But I was like, oh my God, it's Scarlett Wilson. So yeah, that was kind of how we did it. Outside of, so I have met in person, Robin and Amelia, Amelie. Hi, Bree.
Hey, Bree.
But I haven't gotten to meet in person any of the other medical authors, although Tracy is not far from me. So once everything kind of calms down a little bit, we're hoping to kind of maybe get that happening.
Yeah, Tracy's coming on next month, and I'm trying to get your sister to help me interview her because she was very much fangirling. So
she will tell you flat out that she is her favorite medical author, and I often, depending on what's happening during the week, may be able to rate number 3. But Tina, Beckett, and Tracy will always be her 2 top favorites.
Well, that's I guess you're in the top 3 with your sister. I mean, that's, you know.
Am I? Sometimes I question.
She's just being nice. All right. So I love trivia nights in romance novels. I've read several of them and I just enjoy the heck out of them each time. So how fun is it, or is it awful to write a trivia night scene?
So I love trivia. It's one of I often joke that I have just a head full of useless knowledge. I listen to podcasts all the time, like on the way to work, and so I'm just constantly listening to trivia type things. And so I really wanted Penny to be that kind of trivia person, because it is something where, again, because so much of this was me playing with the idea of Becca and I in a book, it is something that I often be like, oh, did you know this? She's like, I never know that. I'm like, well, sometimes. So that idea of this is something that Penny really enjoys doing. And it is, outside of doing, I also wanted it to be like a true kind of trivia thing, and not, because my husband actually tried out and made he didn't actually end up, because they canceled it before he ever went on, but he actually made Sports Jeopardy.
Oh, okay.
Back when it was on some streaming service for 2 months.
Okay.
So he really likes sports stuff. And I think a lot of times when you see trivia nights out, a lot of them are actually sports related, because they're in sports bars. Becca's honesty is the best. Unless you're on the receiving end, Bree, then it's a little stabby. And so I wanted to play with that, and then I got to put some of the silly things that I wanted to know in there, the final scene where a lot of it is wedding themed trivia. It was just some of my favorite wedding marriage themed trivia, where some of those things that we always do but don't realize the history behind them,
right, where the tradition comes from.
Yep.
Okay, so this one just came to me. When you're writing, average, how many tabs do you have open on your browser?
A lot.
A lot.
Enough that sometimes my computer tells me that I need to shut some of them.
Yeah.
It's a constant. I always have too many tabs. I actually only have this tab open right now so that it will just run StreamYard. Right. Yeah. But I always have at least 6 open, a lot of tabs.
Well, glad to hear it, because it's just the writer way, isn't it?
It is.
Well, are there any fellow authors that you'd like to give a shout out to while we're on here?
Sure. So all of the other Met authors are great. They're always so fun to write. And then Rachel Stewart,
Oh yeah.
who writes now. She used to write for Dare,
Uh-huh.
and now she writes. Now she writes for the romance line.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see who else. I'm a huge fan in the paranormal world of Gina Showalter.
Oh,
I
I
love Gina's
love
books.
Lords of the Underworld.
Wars of the Underworld. If you've not read Heartless is fantastic.
Okay.
Heartless is it's her. I think it's her most recent release.
All right.
It's
Was that
great.
like a spin-off?
No, it's a completely. He's an evil fae. It's
okay.
He keeps a jar of tongues. It's the tongues of his enemies. Like it's a whole thing.
Yes, Becca was talking about that. She was saying, "Don't make me read the tongue jar."
Right? Yeah, but Gina Showalter is absolutely great. Pippa Roscoe. I mean, really, when you get down to it, I think when you're picking up category romance authors, I think are some of the best in the game, because you have to be able to tell. It is not an easy task to be able to tell a believable happily ever after in 50,000 words.
Yes.
So if you pick up a category romance book, you're really going to get some amazing storytellers. And our newest medical author actually just had her release come out last month, I think. Luana de Rosa, I think is how you pronounce her name. And so go and read Luana's books, because she's a new Met author, and we're so excited to have her on board.
Oh, well, that's great. And I agree. The Harlequin authors are great. Since I've gotten into the whole category world, or just category authors in general, they've been great with me barging into their life and
we're so excited
making noise about them on Twitter.
Yeah, no, we are so excited when people come in, because it really is just this like whole world of romance that I think a lot of times people initially think that it's like their grandma's romance, and it's like, no, it's not. Come check us out. Yes, with Dr. Handsome.
I've heard about that one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Dr. Henderson. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Yeah.
So tell us what's next for Juliette Hyland in books, in life, in everything going forward.
Sure. So let's see. The Vet's Unexpected House Guest comes out in June. So this is a June release.
Okay.
The Prince's One Night Baby comes out in November. And that, since I know Bree is on, that is a Hallmark movie. He is a secret prince. There is a baby delivery that happens in an airplane.
Oh, I love it.
They have to force the plane to land, and then they have a one-night stand. And then when they get to his island, she's the new midwife and he's the doctor. It is delicious. It was so much fun.
Oh my goodness.
But I definitely wrote that one after probably watching a few too many Netflix Christmas movies, and it's another and things with that. So that was so much fun. And then Rules for His Fake Florida Fling is out in January. And then the book that I am pitching that isn't sold anywhere yet, but I will give a little bit of an inside baseball.
Yeah.
I'm calling the Love Equation.
Okay.
And it is The Wedding Date meets National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, okay.
And she is a professor. She's a mathematician, and he is a sociology professor, and he agrees to play her fake boyfriend at Christmas time, provided she lets him in to review all of the holiday traditions for her giant family.
I love it. I love fake
So,
relationships.
so we'll see if that one. So that's one of the things that I currently have working on the side burner. So
Okay.
hopefully one day we'll see that one on someone's
Yes,
desk. So
yes, I hope to see it. You know, that's funny. The Wedding Date was the book that got me into romance. It was
oh
so I had read like a couple before, but it was that one that's just like, okay, I'm sticking around in this genre for a long time.
yeah, it was so fun. I need Bree. I need it. Well, I hope Bree that I can get it because these two characters came up and I they're just so cute together. So, but
Oh,
she's a woman in STEM, and in my day job, I'm a woman in STEM. So
okay.
it's a woman in STEM story with him being the sociologist and her giant family not knowing not knowing that they are actually like part of
Uh-huh.
a study.
It sounds like so much fun. So Bree had a question here. How does it feel to be
Sure.
contributing to the medical line?
It's funny. When I started writing for the medical line, um I had read them for years, but I did not realize that it's not an original line, but it is
Uh-huh.
really close.
Yeah.
Um and it's been so when you're looking at a Hallmark book, you underneath the spine, underneath the spine, if I can get it in there, you can
Hmm.
actually see a number.
Yes.
And that's the number of books that have been produced in that line at that point.
Yeah.
So my June release is number 1254. And it's kind of crazy. um, and to realize that my grandmother read these, and my mom didn't read medicals, but she reads presents, and she read a lot of Silhouette.
Okay. Yeah.
um it's really cool, and Becca and I bonded over them when I was on bed rest, and I would read one and then we would chat about it, because when you're pregnant and on bed rest, days just stretch.
Yeah.
So it's been so much fun. And I always joke around for people, particularly if you think you might like writing historical, but you're a little bit uncertain. The
Mhm.
medicals have a little bit of the research line in them, because the medical parts of the book have to be accurate.
Uh-huh.
So you do kind of it does kind of scratch that, hit, need, desire to research, while also getting matchmakers with us this month. Yes, matchmakers are so much fun. Uh, so yeah, it's incredible to be part of the medical line, and adding to that just already giant repository.
Well, we love having you in the medical line, and we're looking forward to everything you've got coming as well.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that was all I had for you. Was there
Sure.
anything else you wanted to touch on? Any big causes you need to bring attention to?
The only big cause that I will bring attention to is the same one that I talked about when I was on the Categorically Romance podcast. Pay your creative people.
Yes.
Um, if you are stealing books, almost all of us have day jobs. You are not stealing from some rich author your piracy is stealing. So if you are checking books out of Amazon and then returning them, it's a really cruddy thing to do.
Yeah.
So that is my soapbox that I will.
Okay. Well, we'll have it. All right, everyone. My next author interview, at least planned one so far, is going to be with Nina Crespo, and that's on Monday, May the 2nd, at the same time as today, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then I will also be on Nicole's live show for Pleading the Fish by Julianne Lindsay. This is the last book in the Seaside Cafe Mysteries. And that will be on April 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. And until then, make sure you check the description box below. You can find everywhere where Juliette lives online, as well as a link to A Nurse to Claim His Heart and where you can pick up your copy of that. So until then, everyone, thanks for being here. And
Thanks
Juliette,
so much for having
thank you
me.
so much for being here with us. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I wish you the best on everything that's coming for you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. You guys have a great night.